Welcome to CEO.CA, the leading community for investors in junior resource and venture stocks. My name is Amrit Gill, and joining us today is Paul Parisotto, President, CEO, and Director of Moon River Capital. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
How are you finding this year's conference?
I think it's fabulous. 30,000 people running around, talking to each other, lots of energy, lots of positive things happening, I think.
Yeah, well, let's get right into this. Give us an elevator pitch for Moon River Capital.
Please do. Thank you. Moon River Capital is a fairly new company. Started trading in November of 2023. We acquired the rights to develop the Davidson Molybdenum Deposit in British Columbia. And this deposit is located very close to Smithers, BC, about 8 kilometers away. And it is one of the world's highest grade moly deposits. And we are working very hard to develop this deposit.
What experience do you and your team bring to the table?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Our chairman is a man by the name of Ian McDonald, and Ian has a long history with moly in British Columbia. He was the founder of a company called Blue Pearl, and Blue Pearl operated the Endako moly deposit. It's about 200 kilometers south of where the Davidson Deposit is located. He was the founder of Silver Wheaton Resources, and he's had a long and storied and extremely successful career in the mining business. He's our chairman. We have a CFO by the name of Tong Ying, who has decades of experience with accounting issues and capital markets, and she's ex-PricewaterhouseCoopers. Our internal counsel has Lorna McGilvery, has worked for many mining companies, so we have that in-house as well. And we have an outstanding board of directors. Mm-hmm. We have a guy by the name of Gordon Reed, and he was the former COO of Centerra that operates and has a moly division. Has the Endako Mine deposit in Idaho called Thompson Creek, and a smelter outside of Pittsburgh. So it's good to have him on board with all of his moly experience. Alice Murphy is another director. She chairs our audit committee. She used to work at PwC as well. She has got lots of mining finance experience and governance experience. She's been a mayor of a community. She's worked with First Nations, and she was the former CFO of Aber Diamonds. And we also have Jamie Levy on our board. Jamie's the CEO of Generation Mining, and they're our biggest shareholder. We acquired the property from Generation Mining. They own over 25% of our outstanding shares. And he's got, decades of experience in the mining sector, raising capital and structuring and operations. And lastly, and also very importantly, you have an advisor named Mark Wilson. And Mark recently retired, and for decades, he ran the moly division at Centerra. So it's good to have that experience with moly from the advisory perspective, and more importantly, from the board perspective. Mm-hmm. And lastly, myself, for those of you that don't know me, I've got over 40 years of capital markets and mining experience. Used to work at the Toronto Stock Exchange listing companies. I then worked at a couple of mining investment banking firms. I've run a number of mining companies that have been acquired by much larger mining companies. And so I think all of us, we have a little bit of gray hair, a little bit of experience, and we're really working hard to make this a success.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you're bringing that experience to the table and to life for some of the projects, including the Davidson Deposit.
Thank you very much. So on February 22nd, we released the results of our preliminary economic assessment, and I was quite pleased with how that turned out. This deposit is an underground deposit, and what makes it kind of really unique is that we can locate all of our infrastructure underground, including our processing facilities, and we can use large electrical bulk mining equipment to mine this deposit. So I want to emphasize that before I talk about the financial implications of the deposit and what that means for our shareholders, because it's the kind of deposit that there'll be no carbon emissions. There'll be low carbon emissions because there'll be no diesel. It'll be all electric. It will minimize the surface impact of the deposit. And in today's environment, it's really important to have a social license to be able to operate with the local stakeholders, community members, First Nations. And I think by having an underground deposit that uses electrification in having our processing facilities underground is a real benefit. So to that end, this deposit, just producing moly, will produce about 10 million pounds of moly a year for 20 years, maybe more depending on what moly price you use. It has an after-tax net present value at an 8% discount rate of over $600 million Canadian. The capital to build the mine is $575 million, but that includes a $111 million contingency. The cash cost to produce a pound of moly is sub $10 Canadian, and the all-in sustaining costs are sub $11 Canadian. Moly's currently trading at around $20.50 US a pound. So there's a good margin there and a good buffer. But, as importantly as all of those metrics are, we recently did some work and we found that we noticed a lot of tungsten in the deposit, but there's also rare earths, which are very critical in today's worldwide economy, as well as gallium and copper. So we're going to be, the next stages here are to do some drilling work this summer to allow us to get some fresh drill core to do metallurgical test work to determine the economic recoverability of the tungsten and the gallium and the rare earths. And we're hopeful that could add, a lot of revenue to our operation. And that will have a big benefit in reducing costs and enhancing the value of the deposit, and also helping in the critical mineral development in the West and in Canada. So we're really excited to do this work. And after we have the test results from the metallurgical test work, we'll update our preliminary economic analysis and we'll let the market and the stakeholders know what that will mean with this, hopefully, added potential revenue from byproduct credits.
And now, walk us through the recent news of the newly acquired 25% interest in the Endako Molybdenum Mine.
Thank you. That's an interesting transaction that we entered into. So on Thursday of last week, we announced that we had entered into an arrangement with Sojitz Corporation. Sojitz is a large Japanese multinational corporation, whereby, subject to a right of first refusal, they will be paying us being Moon River, $43 million to take over their interest in the Endako mining complex. $41 million of that capital will go into an escrow account to fund ongoing care and maintenance and reclamation bonds that we'll have to post. And the holder of the right of first refusal has 60 days to make that determination. As I mentioned before, Ian McDonald, our chairman, was involved in running the Endako operation. It's only 200 kilometers away from the Davidson Deposit. It has one of the largest mills in Canada that was recently completed. It can process 55,000 tons a day. And, we think that, we should do maybe some more work should be done to see if it makes sense to put that deposit back into production. But until we know what the holder of the right of first refusal is going to do, we're, nothing for us to do but sit here right now. The capital that we're receiving, the $43 million, it will generate interest for us. And that interest we can use to fund our corporate overhead costs and other costs. So we're unique as a junior mining company, having significant interest income that's coming into us over the next few years.
What are the main uses of moly?
Oh, moly's been around for a long time, and it's primarily used to make steel alloys and make steel stronger and corrosive resistant. So it's used in in the oil and gas industry for drilling and pipelines. It's used in making nuclear reactors. It's used in wind turbines, specialty steels in alloys. So it's used in vehicles and even electric vehicles. So it has many, many, many uses. It's been growing at about 4.5% for the last 60 or 70 years each year. The price is volatile, but it continues to grow. So we're bullish on moly. We're in the moly game. We're bullish on the supply and demand aspects of the moly world, notwithstanding its volatility. So we're all in.
As we look ahead to the rest of 2024, what have you identified as some key catalysts for the company?
So, the key catalyst for us for this year is to complete a drilling program to allow us to get some fresh drill core and do metallurgical testing and update our preliminary economic assessment. That's number one. Number two, we want to continue to engage with the First Nations and the local community to ensure that we're working with them to enhance value, but look after the environment and do things properly in British Columbia. We'll see what happens with the Endako acquisition, because that could very much change what we're going to be doing in the short term as well.
What sets you apart from the competition?
Well, there aren't any primary moly producers in Canada. And as we develop our assets, we could be, one or if not the only moly producer in Canada. Secondly, we have rare earths in our deposit. So when we were doing our 43-101 mineral resource estimate and confirmation work, we found all 17 rare earths in all of our assays, gallium and copper. And so these byproduct credits potentially could have a major impact on the revenue we could be generating and the margins in producing moly. So we're optimistically and cautiously excited about the opportunities there.
Mm-hmm. Any final words for the community at CEO.CA?
I think so.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.